On our rail series, which is the square, the H, the X, and the tri, we use a stack ESC and controller setup. On this particular one, we're going to be using the Emax F4 Magnum. And this has the ESC, the controller, and the FPV transmitter. We're also using a Turnigy Evolution radio, and we're going to be using the FS A8S. Going to be our setup for the transmitter. We're going to be using a run cam, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But this is going to be part of the control system, and we'll get to that in a bit. Now our setup on all of these are going to be the same. This is going to be holding our controller and our camera. And the way these are done, if you remember, we cut these sides off, the top part. We have the bottom part now, and this is where our strap is going to go on. So this is going to be the side of the rail or the quad. And we're going to be mounting the camera here. And so we're going to call this as front, and this is back. Could have very well set it up like this, front or back. But importantly, these are the sides. This is going to be pushed down now. And if we can, let's go ahead and loosen these up for right now. We're going to tighten these up after a while. And we're going to put this just like this. Let's see. Just like this. Remember, this is the sides, the cutout pieces. We're going to slide this on first. It's a tight fit. That's what we want. Or we'll just push it down. Okay. And you'll see it's all the way down. You'll see this is a spacer here and another one on top. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's go ahead and unpack our flight controller. You want to be careful, of course, with the components on the flight controller. You really want to handle it from the sides. You do want to touch on the top, you know, just as little as possible, so you don't, you know, remove a component. We're going to take this apart. I'm going to go ahead and save these here. You might need them later on. We've furnished some spacers, and we're going to be using those. If you remember earlier, I said, you know, let's kind of take care of it so we don't lose them. So we're not going to use any of these plastic screws or spacers, but I would keep them. You never know. You might need them on something else. Now on this, they plug in together. The ESC is at the bottom, the controller, they plug in here. So you want to be careful with it, and there you go. Be careful of all this. This is tough once you get it put together, but fragile when we're in this stage. If any of these are, you know, bent up, or you, you know, remove one of the parts here by handling it too rough, well, it won't work. It's ruined. So we're getting this disassembled. And again, I would save these. Not for this build. They may need it on something else. Okay, we're going to put these parts here. Just let you know what comes with it. That's our battery plug and the heat shrink for it. We're going to install this later. There's a receiver that comes with it, and we're not going to use this one. This is a Tyrannus receiver or transmitter, and we're going to be using the Turnigy Evolution. So definitely we're going to keep that. The capacitor, we don't normally need it if there's, you know, interference with the camera. This can be installed. I've not needed it so far, but we're going to keep it here. This is one of the antennas, or not actually an antenna, an adapter so you can put the antenna on. It's screw onto here, and this connects to the transmitter here. You'll see it right there. And it'll snap on. We'll do that later. You get some wire with it. We're going to use a little bit smaller wire on this to make it a little bit easier on soldering in, and it won't hurt anything. This is an adapter here, and I think this is for the camera. If not, we have one here. We'll get to that in a minute. This is the antenna we're going to use right now. And this is a whole antenna. Here you have to screw one onto here. This is everything. And again, it'll clip on. And then you get some directions with it. And a sticker. So, we're going to put this to the side. A little bit later we'll go over it, but this is a beeper, and we'll take this top off once it's done so you can hear it. So for right now, let's start with our ESC. Now this is going to connect to the motors, and we're going to be turning this. This is all directional. If you see here the plug, this is how it would normally go. So you can see the arrow be facing direction of flight. We're not going to do that. We're going to turn this one this way, which in turn will move it this way. So you can see direction of flight would be that way. Well, in Betaflight, when we pull up the firmware, this we'll adjust for it here, and we'll also adjust for it here, because the motor position is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's go ahead and put it on. We'll slide it down for right now, and take your time with it, and don't, get in a hurry and break your ESC. So just take it easy and slide it down. And once it's down, you'll see it's all the way down. So our motors are going to have to go to these 3 pads here. These 3 pads here, here, and here. These 2 here are going to be for your battery. And we'll get to that. But what we're going to do, we're going to set this up where the motors can be disconnected anytime. So you can switch out a motor really easy. If you want to take this controller off, it's basically you can disconnect the motors and lift this all the way out. So to do that, we're going to cut some wiring, and we're going to put a connector on this side, and then we'll wind up soldering all this. So first thing we're going to do is figure out how long this wire needs to be. Okay. Again, let's put this away for right now. There we go. So let's get this wiring measured up. Okay, we decided on 1 3/4 inches for the wiring. And this is what the connector looks like. And of course we're going to put some shrink tube on this. And we'll show you when it's done. So this is going to slide on so the motors can be changed. Of course all this will make this look nice once we're finished. After this is done, we'll start soldering onto the tabs for all the motors and for the battery. So let me get busy. Okay, we have our wires soldered on, and right here, these are motor wires. This one here, that's how it's going to come out. I'm put a zip tie here and here, and they're plugged in right here. And we're going to do the rest of them, finish them off the same as this. I just wanted to show you what it would look like and how it looked like just after it was soldered. And you want to make sure, again, on your ESC, red is your positive here. It's going to show it right there. You just want to make sure your polarity is correct. Black is going to be the ground, or negative rather. And the same thing on your plug that you soldered on. Red to plus, black to minus. Okay. What we'll do in a minute too is using our tester, continuity tester, we'll touch these two here and just make sure nothing's grounded out. And look at it, really close, do a good visual, make sure none of the pads have been breached together. So just double check that, and it'll make you happy after you do that. It'll be good. Okay, so next, and that's all we're going to do to the ESC. Next, the controller and the camera VTX, or transmitter. Excuse me. If you're using the enclosed Tyrannus receiver, it would slip on these three, and the receiver would be mounted here, and just sort of these three. So there's like a million videos on this, how to do it, but if you need any help, just let me know. What we're going to do, we're using S-Bus with the Turnigy Evolution radio, and so our receiver, we're going to tie in here on 3, UART 3, and it's going to show ground, positive, and receiver. We're going to hook up to these three wires. This is going to be the black, this is going to be the red, and this will be white, I think we're using with that. Let's get our receiver. And the wire for it. There we go. If we look on here, we see it says ground, VCC, that's your power, iBus or S-Bus. PPM's the end one, which we're going to just take out. This would be installed like this. So we're not going to use this one. We'll take it out. Then we'll have black for ground, again red for power, and white's going to be VCC, or I'm sorry, iBus and S-Bus. So let's do this. Save these wires though. You never know when you're going to need them. Just put them in a big old pile and you know where they're at, and if you need it, just dig it out. Okay. Now we're going to solder this on, so we're going to just cut this. And again, save all of these. I do anyway. Okay. These are the 3 wires we're going to solder onto here. And again, this is UART3. It has the ground positive. This is say R3. R3. On this side here, this is where we're going to tie in the camera. Here we'll have the ground or the negative, 5 volts, and VN, that's video in. So we're going to hook it up right here, and it says camera right here. This plug here now, let's get our camera out. And you can check, it's on, again, there's a million videos out on this. This is to set your camera up. I normally just go through Betaflight to do that. And here it gives you some wiring. I think we're going to use this one. And it gives you a mounting bracket here. And some screws. And again, if you need some help, just let me know. Or you can, just get online and, like I said, million. It's well documented. Ton of videos out there. So if you ever need any help with anything, you know where to find me. Okay, so what I normally do with this too, this is going to, remember, if you remember our plug is here, and it's going to be like this. Our camera goes here, camera wiring. So if you look at it, the camera is going to mount or install right here in front. So we'll make sure we give ourselves enough. So I would cut it about here, which is about which is about 3.5 inches. It may be long, but we'll just, pour it up in there. So we'll do it like that. About 3.5 inches long. Save this. This is another plug just like this. So if you have to use this for any reason, you have another plug that'll fit. Yeah, there's a spare. Okay. So this one's for your camera. This one's for your receiver. And we're going to get this sorted up. Just for a recap on what I did. So the wiring on this particular one was 1 3/4 inch. And then you solder on the female connector. And the shrink tube is 1 inch long. I cut these wires 3.5 inches long. And I just do that to make sure we have enough to get around. That works out real good. The wiring here is 20 gauge that I use for the motors. The connector is 2 millimeter, so I used 3 millimeter shrink tube. I used 16 gauge on this wiring instead of what comes with the Emax controller. Just, it's a little bit easier to solder on, and it's plenty enough power for it. Okay, I think that covers all that. And by doing, or cutting them these lengths, it gives you that. So Makes it good. If you ever have to replace a motor, you can just change it here. So let me go ahead and get this other wiring soldered on, and we're almost finished. And again, this is the plug, and this is the plug here. Also here, we can take the cover off the buzzer, and it's going to go like this. Now let's go to the screws. Remember, we had the spacers. We want to use the 6mm. You have 6mm and 4mm. We want to use the 6mm on top of the ESC. And then after the controller's installed, the 4mm go on top of that. Okay. Okay. So let's put the 6mm and we'll install our flight controller, and there's the plugs. Now whenever you put this on, you want to make sure they line up. Just take your time doing it, because you know, if they get off, then you know, you have some problems. So ease the controller down. Just take your time. We gotta slide down. And as we get closer to the connector, and that's it right there, right in here, we'll make sure that they go in. And there they are. We'll slide them in there. And then we'll set it down on top of the spacers. Now at this point, this is going to go to the camera, and I'm going to put it around there. Just kind of tuck that in a little bit. Let's do it that way. And this is going to be for our receiver. And let's tuck it in. Again, just be gentle with it. And I think we're going to bring it around like this when it's all said and done. You'll notice we have here, but we just get a little bit more clearance with this set of 4mm. And as we go down, we want to make sure that everything is clearing. Now, this is probably a good time, or you can leave some of this up later, but we'll need to set. We have another edition coming of this cover, and for this particular one, we're actually going to have a hole in here where you'll be able to see your video transmitter whenever you set it. There's a button right here on the side, and that's where you're going to set your channels. So when it's all done, you can always lift it up, set your channel, and put it back. Later on, like I said, we'll have an opening. And if you want to on your own, you can go ahead and cut an opening in here. I normally fly with a preset channel that I use all the time, and the guys I fly with have theirs, and it's pretty much set in how we're doing it. One good trick is, and I'll show you in a second. Here we just want to push it down. And we forgot to put our antenna on, so this is good. I can show you. To give you a hint, to make it a little bit easier, you can use needle nose pliers, and you kind of do this number, and it makes it a lot easier getting it off. Okay. So let's get our antenna on. One little reminder too, if you were going to put your cap on, it would go right here on your power, and you'll have a negative and you have a positive. Just make sure the polarity is correct on that. You can trim these down a little bit if you want. I would suggest it if you're going to put it on, so it's pretty close to it. So that's where that goes. We're going to put this on, and if you see, that's the connector there. And here, be careful with it, take your time, and it'll snap on. A lot of people put, hot glue or something to help hold it on. If it gets too much force, it will come off. There, you heard it. So you could put hot glue, or they make a, hot glue would probably be best. Anyway, this is going to go around like this. So let's go ahead and go back with it again. I usually keep my finger on it, just to get it where I want it to go. And I think we'll go there. Now, one thing we need to remember, and you'll be able to get to it here fine, this is the mini USB that's going to tie into your controller. And when we turn this around, we took this in consideration. It's be easy to get to. So let's go back with this again. And like I said, if you were you can lift the top or cut a hole in the top. Lift this off or cut a hole in the top to set your channels. One thing you want to do is if you pull this off to set, your channels or whatever, you always want to make sure you have your antenna installed or plugged in. Okay. And that's how we're going to run this. If you were tying in this one, this would connect just as we did, and this would come around and actually in this hole right here where your nut would fit on, and it would be installed there. Then your antenna would be screwed onto that. Let's go ahead and continue pushing this down. Make sure we don't have any wires here pinching it, and there we go. And then we want to make sure nothing's pinching here. Like that. There we go. Everything is pushed down now. We're ready to put some nuts on top. Your controls are almost finished. Pretty easy, actually. The soldering is, if you haven't soldered very much, that's gonna, maybe give you a little problem. But there's a lot of people in the hobby, and everyone is, that I know of anyway, is more than happy to help. So if you need somebody to give you a hand, reach out. And they definitely will. And after you do it a few times, this one's gonna be a bit. After you do this a few times, you'll be an old hand at it. No problem. We said we were going to tighten these screws up at the bottom, and we're going to there in a minute. And talking about these here, so we'll go ahead and hold them with a pair of needle nose. And tighten this up. Anytime you're going to take the controller off, just makes it a lot easier to loosen these up. And it's not hard to do, so it's easy. Again, I'm gonna hold the nut there. We're gonna tighten these up good. And this holds the whole thing together. So yeah, anytime you're going to change the controller, take it off, this will loosen it up. Okay. And then we can tighten this up. Doesn't have to be crazy tight. But I would, use a wrench or something to, I have little open end wrenches for that. Or you can actually just do it with your needle nose. And like I said, you don't want to make it crazy tight. Doesn't need to be. Yeah, we're in good shape. Okay, and a good way to do it when you're tightening this up, you'll see that it's flat, that it's even all the way. I'll go ahead and put the wires on, and put some zip ties on this. Okay, we have our receiver on. We just stuck it down with double-sided tape and, you know, plugged it in. And I have the wiring finished up. Let's get the camera out. And let's get the screws out. And we'll grab our camera. Let's get it plugged in. And again, you always want to just double check everything. 5 volts ground and video. So, I mean, it's going to go like this. There we go. And let's get a couple of these screws started. Make it a little bit easier. And we'll tuck that in. We're going to go into the middle. Get it started. And then we're going to go into the middle. You don't have to tighten it up too much. You can be the judge of that when you try to move it. It holds it real well. And there you go. You can set the angle how you want. If you're new, you know, you go just a little bit of up like that. Of course, if you're really fast, there you go. Okay. Okay, we're all done except for setting up Betaflight and trimming up a little bit of wiring, and we're ready to go fly. I normally let's go ahead and drill these pieces out. Use an 1/8 inch drill. You can use this or not. I'll show you what I do. Drill these out to 1/8. And I set this on top. And that holds the receiver in pretty good. Keeps it covered. And put another nut on top. And that secures that. And once this is secured and this is secured, we're good to go. So we'll do that when we finish up this wiring after we get Betaflight set up. Also, I take the top off, and you can use this for your camera mount if you're going to do some doing a little bit of camera work with it. That's your GoPro session, but you can put any you know, camera up there. Then this can be screwed up on, or screwed on top also. And again, with the stack, the way we use the stack with all of these, quads I was mentioning earlier. This works identically the same way. So you can use it this way. But without the HD camera, this is how I normally do it. Okay, well, we'll get this on Betaflight. We're going to be running stock PIDs, but we'll get the setup done on it. And then we'll trim up a few items. See you next time.